Welcome to the Volk Furs Podcast. I'm your host, Garrett Volk. The fur trade has a rich history dating back to the 1500s. How has it survived, and what is the future? I will take a look at the history of the fur trade, in-depth discussions on various topics pertaining to trapping, fur fashion, interviews with industry experts, and much more. If you are addicted to fur, this is your podcast. Welcome, everybody, to the Volk Furs podcast. This is Garrett Volk, your host. We just got done with one here a couple days ago with Brian Watson with Trapline Beard Oil, LLC. That was kind of a nice little one. And I got another one for you today. Before I get into that, just a few things. I want to mention I'm getting some projects finished up for the year, and I am taking orders for any type of fur hats, fur gauntlets, pillows, blankets, whatever you want. I have made some kind of neat beaver can koozies, so that's been a kind of a hot selling item, but winter's coming. So if you guys need some fur stuff, let me know. It takes a little bit, but I'm getting done with some stuff, so I got some extra time. But anyway, if you want to see any of my products out there, I do have them on an Etsy page. So just go to Etsy and type in Volk Furs. You'll see my shop, and there's some pictures of some of the stuff I've made and what it looks like. So anyway, enough with that. We'll get to our guest today. I guess I've got to know this guy a little bit here and there, just chatting on Instagram a little bit and some of the stuff that he's put on there over the years. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that he's killed more coyotes than anybody out there in a long time. So today on the episode, I welcome Mitch Kvernum. Welcome, Mitch, to the Volk Furs podcast.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for having me.
So what, are you getting itchy for coyotes or coyote hunting?
Yeah, actually I am a little bit. The last couple of weeks I've been starting to think about it a lot more and getting some reloading done and just doing a little bit of scouting and looking around. So, it'll be here soon. It won't be too long.
Yeah, I've been hearing some at night now, and it seems like you start hearing them this time of year. The young ones are getting kind of vocal. It's probably a good time to go out. And do you ever do any locating this time of year with that to figure out where some of the dens are at? Or
I don't really do it. I have never really done that. I kind of hunt the same areas probably for the last 15 years. I've hunted roughly the same areas. So over time, you kind of start to learn where the coyotes are and where they aren't. And for the most part, you can kind of count on if you find a good area, you find a good spot. 9 times out of 10, that spot's going to be good for a long time. So I've kind of just built up the knowledge base that way, and kind of just I try to hunt new ground, but I also revisit a lot of ground from years previous.
Yeah, that kind of find the same thing with trapping. It seems like if you find a good spot trapping, or calling like over a same deal, find a good spot trap and whatever it may be, you kill all the coyotes in that area. Next year, new coyotes come in, they use that exact same spot, that exact same travel way. It's kind of, they're a different animal. I mean, it's kind of challenging going after them, but once you find them, it seems like they're there every year.
Yeah, that's totally on point. I have spots that I've killed. I have coyote stands. I kill coyotes at every year, but there's spots that Marty and I have killed, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 coyotes on the same coyote stand, over the last 10 years. And, those kind of spots are the best because you go into that kind of spot the first time every year and you just know, it's going to be good,
Yeah. We've always used, 100% stand. We got a spot that's pretty much 100% almost every single time. Now, once in a while, depending on crop or if there's some cows around or if we just hit it so much, we won't kill as many as we have in the past. But I'm assuming you have some spots where, like you said, it's just you're going to kill some coyotes when you get there.
Yeah, totally. And for like newer guys getting into it, they're looking for some advice, and that'd be one big piece of advice is just start banking spots. Even if every year you only find, let's say you find 5 new spots every year or 10 new spots every year that you called coyotes and killed them, and you put them in your Onyx maps or whatever you're using. I mean, now you got that for the next year, and you just keep building on that and building on it and building on it. And you do that long enough. Let's say you do that for 10, 15 years. Before you know it, you're going to have a couple hundred spots where you've killed coyotes. And when you get to that point, you can start putting up some pretty big numbers.
Yeah. Let's step back a second here. Let's step back a second. We'll come back to that. What got you into coyote hunting, or what's your history on this coyote hunting
Yeah,
thing?
for sure. Yeah. So when I was younger, I did all kinds of hunting. No coyote hunting, but I did, deer hunting and bird hunting growing up with my dad. And I remember I got a little bit older and I would be in Shields. Remember they had those old I guess VHS players with Randy Anderson or whoever shooting coyotes in
Yep,
the.
I sat there and watched them every time I was in there.
I would sit there and watch those, and I'd never done it before, but I'm like, man, that looks like so much fun. And Marty, the guy I hunt with, his son was a couple years younger than me. He passed away, but his son and I, we got into it together, started coyote hunting, and Marty coyote hunted, so we started taking both of us when we were real young. And I remember just the first couple of times I went, I'm like, this is for me. I just loved it, and I knew right then, like, I'm going to be hooked. I'm going to be hooked forever. And so yeah, I just got started that way with Marty and Luke at a young age, and kind of just stuck with it from there, and been hunting coyotes ever since.
Yeah, I remember the first coyote that I called in and shot it, called it in, shot it, and I was kind of like in disbelief for a second because I tried for many times for a couple of years before I called in my first one, and I realized that after a while, it's like, how the coyotes just aren't there, But it's something that when they're coming in and they don't know you're there, and you're going to kill them. It's quite a rush.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. And even to this day, I mean, I still get pretty fired up about it calling a coyote, and there's nothing like it.
So did you when you were younger then and got into it, did you participate in any of those calling tournaments that everybody's been having, or?
Yeah, so actually we did a ton of those coyote tournaments. I'm actually going to get back into them, I think, this year. But yeah, we for probably 5 or 6 years there, we probably did. I mean, we did pretty much any coyote tournament we could get in. And when we first started, I mean, we got our butts kicked pretty good. We were just kind of figuring it out, But once we got dialed in with it, we started winning a lot of them. And they actually had one in Williston here. They don't do it anymore, but they had like a memorial hunt for Marty's boy, and we won that one. We won that one 5 years in a row. And then there was one out of Dickinson we won a couple times, and so yeah, we did a lot of coyote tournaments, and I haven't done them as much anymore, just because there's a lot of drama involved. You wouldn't think so, but anytime there's money involved, people get weird. You know how it is.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. I used to do it when I first got into it. I had a guy that got me in. He was quite a bit older than me, but he was the one that kind of got me into coyote hunting and years ago. And I did a couple of tournaments too here and there, and I always try to do maybe one or two a year. And I really learned quickly that, like you said, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of competition, and really all I want to do is I want to go out and kill coyotes and have fun, right?
Right.
And some people, boy, I'll tell you what, it's like they'd cut their arm off to get ahead of somebody almost, and I kind of got out of them, and I kind of ran out of time with doing other stuff and doing more trap and stuff like that. But I know what you mean, and it'd be fun to get back into it a little bit again. I know a lot of guys now take them pretty seriously. That's great. I mean, you get pretty competitive that way, but sometimes it gets to be a little bit of, like you said, drama in there, and it doesn't make it quite as fun.
Right. Yeah. And I'm there to, like, with Marty and we put a lot of time into it, and we're there to win. So, I mean, we take it pretty serious when we do it. When we do a coyote tournament, I mean, we're running hard.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of guys might see you put up, some big numbers and think, how it is. Oh, they cheated. They did this.
Yep.
They did that.
I've heard
they,
that.
they have better ground than everyone else. Well, that's the other funny thing is, people say, oh, you have better ground than everyone else. It's like 95% of ranchers in North Dakota and eastern Montana are going to let you hunt coyotes. So the ground I'm hunting, anyone could hunt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's more about just it's like anything in life. You put the work in and you work at it, and you trial and error. You learn, and some guys just they don't want to do that. They'd rather just point fingers and call you a cheater, which is too bad.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen a couple tournaments where everybody's like, how they get that many? They must have shot him yesterday. I mean, maybe they're just putting the work, and maybe they just do a good job of knowing where the coyotes are at. I mean, there's some people that out there that put in the time, and you're evidence to that. I mean, my gosh, how many coyotes you put up a year? I mean, you put in the time and know where they're at, and you kill them. And some people just know where they're at and put in the
Yeah,
work. I mean, it's probably a lot of people saying, "Oh man, maybe I should have done the work because I don't have a coyote to show in the back of my pickup and hit the contest." But going back to finding this hunting land and stuff. I've always found that if you go up to somebody, landowner, farmer, rancher, and they say, "Hey, I want to trap or shoot coyotes," I mean, I've rarely been turned down. I mean, maybe during like deer season or something, or pheasant season or something where their family's out there hunting, they didn't really want to disturb, which is fine. I get that, and that's not a big deal. But have you found any really, for somebody starting out trying to go out and find land to hunt and stuff like that? I mean, it's not that difficult to find landowners that'll let you coyote hunt, will it? Is it?
no, no. I mean, like I was saying, especially after deer season ends. I mean, I don't think there's very many landowners who are going to turn you down to shoot coyotes. So. And usually they're just going to turn you on to more land. They're going to say, oh, go talk to my neighbor, or go talk to this guy. Let me put you in touch with my relative, that kind of deal.
Right.
So, you go knock on a few doors, and not to mention, I mean, there's a lot of state land you can hunt, and a lot of unposted land you can still hunt. So, I mean, yeah, if you want to get some ground to coyote hunt around here, it's not too difficult.
So off season now, it's kind of the off season, getting into the season here. So, you said you try and get on some new land every year. I mean, walk me through, like, if you're going to go out and do some off season scouting, try to find some new stuff. I mean, is there anything that you look for with looking for
Yeah.
for areas where you think coyotes are probably around?
Yeah. So what I like to do is, let's say I have an area that I've done well in, and I'm really big on Onyx maps. Like, my Onyx library is, it's kind of like my crown jewel.
Yeah.
I have so many spots and so many areas that I've killed coyotes that if I'm not cataloging it, I just won't remember. Especially when you're night hunting too. It's
Oh
dark
yeah.
out. But anyways, so let's say I have an area that I've done really well in. I'll just start. I'll get on my Onyx in the off season, and I'll just start branching off of that. I'll get on my computer. I'll pull up Google Earth, and I'll pull up Onyx, and I'll start picking apart like bordering land to where I've done well, because chances are that's going to be good too.
Yeah.
And I'll start, and I mean, I get pretty detailed on my scouting on. I mean, you can get on the computer on Google Earth, and it's damn near like you're standing there. It's unreal. The satellite imaging now, and I'll map out an area, especially for night hunting. I'll map out a full night of hunting, and I've never even been there. But I'll drop my pins, and I'll figure out where I want to hunt for that wind and that kind of deal, and I'll have a game plan. Just from my computer at home before I even step foot out there.
Yeah, I've used Onyx quite a bit. I've used it quite a bit in my trap line, because you got to pull traps. At least I know you got to know where they're at. So, but then when I'm also out looking for ground to call, you see a trail that, oh wow, that trail looks pretty good across an area, and you see a bunch of deer around, or you find a food source. I mean, all those areas are potentials. I mean, I've learned that in my travels that there's definitely lots of signs to look for, and I'll tell you what, that Onyx map app is a lifesaver. I mean, it just after a while you get so much stuff on your map, you're not sure where you're at, and you have to pinch it down quite a bit to figure out where you're at. But
Right.
those tools are something that, especially now with a lot of people out hunting, in around, you gotta map everything out. Like, I know there a couple years ago when the coyote prices were still a little bit high, probably 2 years ago, there's a lot of people that were night hunting, and they were over in areas where you never saw them before. So you had to have other areas mapped out, kind of the
Yeah.
backups and stuff, in case something, because there was way more people on the landscape, it seemed like.
Yeah. Yeah. It's only happened a couple times, but I remember one night I was out coyote hunting, and it was pretty close to town, and I get on this stand, and I get my get my call set up and get my gun set up and everything. And all of a sudden I was like, I hear something, and I look across the creek, and there's another guy. It's like 3 a.m. It was cold. It was cold, windy. Like, you got to be dedicated to be out there in that
Yeah.
shit. And I look across, and there's a guy standing over there on an irrigation pivot calling too. I could not believe it.
Oh
And
wow.
but I was a little bit ahead of him, and two coyotes come up the creek, and I shot both of them.
I you're talking about being cold and stuff like that. I thought that we were the only stupid ones to be out when it's super cold and windy, but evidently there's a lot of other people that are out too.
I couldn't believe it. I told Marty, I was like, I even for us, like, this is borderline. It was cold and windy and miserable. It was 3 a.m, and lo and behold, there's another. I think it was in the middle of the week too, which
Oh
was
jeez, that's weird.
unbelievable to see another guy out there. But um, I felt bad. I shot those two coyotes, and I kind of felt bad. But oh well.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you always take the chance when you're out there, and everybody knows that. But that's like you said, 3 a.m, middle of the week. You're like, everybody's been sleeping for 5 hours already, and that's like when we go out in the middle of the night. My brother does a lot more night hunting than I do, but I call him in the morning. I said, "What time you getting on?" 4 o'clock, and I'm like, "What the heck?" He's like, "Well, there's nobody else out,
Yeah.
and when you see somebody coming down the road at 4 a.m, you start to wonder what's going on, and
Yep. Yeah,
and
the whole night hunting thing. It's pretty glamorized by everybody, especially on social media. How,
yeah,
oh, night hunting, it's the greatest. But like, once you really get into it and kind of you're living that lifestyle, it's not very glamorous. I mean, you're up all night, usually cold, and snow on the ground, and then you're sleeping, or you get home and you're skinning coyotes, or I have a walk-in freezer, so I usually procrastinate and throw them in there. But
yeah,
you get home and you sleep half the day, and I don't care what anyone says. You try to sleep during the daytime, and you just don't get the same sleep.
no,
And then you're back up, and it's North Dakota in the winter. It's dark at 5:36,
yeah.
so you can be back out hunting by 6:30. So you'd put in enough of those 12, 13-hour nights, and it starts to wear a guy down.
Yeah, what I've had this question asked to me before, and we've talked about it a little bit here and there with some other people. Is there a certain time of the night? I mean, usually that I've seen coyotes move a lot, like early morning, just about like sunrise, and then it depends. In the middle of the winter, maybe 3, 4 o'clock. But is there a certain time during the night where coyotes just respond more, or does it just happen to be you're in a bunch of them, or you're not in a bunch of them? Have you noticed that or?
I just know I don't know what there is to it, but I just know there's nights where it's like almost like fishing, like the fish aren't biting. There's just nights freaking coyotes aren't coming in.
Yeah,
I mean, and I know this for a fact because I'll be in areas I know haven't been hunted. I know there's coyotes. I'll see coyotes out there. I'll have coyotes howling back at me, and you'll make 5 or 6 good stands and see and hear coyotes, and you don't call a single coyote in. And those are the nights you're like, okay, this is going to be a grind. And
yeah.
then you go out the next night and hunt the same area, and it's like you can't make a mistake. I mean, I feel like I could park on the highway and call a coyote in. So
I wonder what causes that, because I've seen it too where they're just not interested. And then you'll get them like a couple days later. I mean, it can't be that they're not hungry or they're not curious. I mean, it's a weird thing because I've seen that too, and I almost wondered what the heck's going on.
yeah, I don't know. I've done it a long time and I haven't figured it out. So if anybody figures it out, let me know.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of questions about coyotes that people just can never figure out. Like, they're just, you think once you figured them out, and sometimes they're like, okay, that's way different of what they usually do. But
Yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, when that happens, then you gotta have to stack the deck in your favor. So maybe you can shoot long range and stuff like that. Or if they're not coming in as good, you can still kill some coyotes. So, because if I'm out there and they're not coming in, I'm out there to hunt. I'm still gonna hunt them all night.
yeah.
But it makes you appreciate when it's good. It really makes you appreciate it.
What, so when you're hunting at night, I mean, do you ever look at like the moon phases, or like if you notice like on a full moon the coyotes just don't respond as much? I mean, during the middle of the winter do you go out every night? I mean, are you just hammering it whenever you can, or?
Yeah. So when the fur market was good, oh man, like, yeah, we'd have, unless it's gonna, and usually in North Dakota the wind doesn't blow at night.
Right.
So I kind of base my hunts off of, okay, if the wind's not going to blow in the daylight, I'd rather day hunt 9 times out of 10. But in North Dakota, you get a lot of wind in the daytime, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if it's not going to blow at night, we go at night. But yeah, when the I didn't hunt them as hard last year, but when the fur market was good, yeah, I mean, Marty and I'd have, we'd hunt 9, 10, 11, 12 nights in a row, hunt all night and, really, really stack them up.
So, you put up a lot of volume over the years, and no doubt that you're out and you're just hammering them. What's an average? I mean, the person's just got to be out and out all the time. I mean, a person's not going to average, of course, X amount of coyotes every single night. I mean, some nights you might shoot one, some nights you might shoot 12. I mean, it all depends. Like putting up the volume that you've killed and put up over the years, you just got to be out all the time, right? I mean, that's just this one, and you got these areas, of course, mapped out and stuff like that. But I mean, is it safe to say that you're hunting like equal, like 60 days in the winter,
Yeah.
every day, or more or less? Or
I would say I'd have to sit down and look at a calendar, but I think that when we were really hunting them hard, I think we're probably hunting probably a lot more than 60 days or 60 nights,
yeah,
But yeah, it's just being consistent, I mean,
yeah,
like I don't know how many times you hunt, let's say you hunt 4 days in a row, and one day you kill three, and then another day you kill six, another day you kill five, and you're thinking, oh, I'm not doing very well. Then that fourth day you go out and shoot, 19, 20
yeah,
coyotes.
right.
And it's just more about being consistent with it. You do it enough, you're gonna have those days and nights where you really do well, and then you're gonna have those days and nights where you struggle a little bit, But if you
So,
can go out and kill, I don't care if you can go out and kill 4 or 5 every time you go. I mean, I don't care who you are. That's good.
oh yeah. So, did you start putting up coyotes right away when you started hunting, or do you just sell them the carcass, or how do you deal with once you start getting to quite a few?
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of did it backwards. I always say you should learn how to skin and put up coyotes when you're not a very good coyote hunter, because let's say you go out all day and shoot one or two. Well, now you can go home and that's not a big deal to handle that,
Yeah,
But we got pretty proficient at killing them, but we sold them carcass forever. Well, then that fur market went nuts, and I'm like, I got to learn how to put these things up. Well, you go out and hunt for a week and kill, you go out and hunt for a week and kill 100 coyotes, and and then you got to deal with them, And I wasn't any good at it. So, I mean, when I started, it was just sheer power of will. Like, I remember when I started, it would take me a half hour to skin a coyote. I'd go to flesh them, I'd tear them in half.
yeah.
I mean, it was a struggle, but I just set my mind to it that I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna get good at this, and like anything, you put enough work into it, and pretty soon, it probably took me a year, but pretty soon I got pretty proficient at it, and by the end there, I was fast.
Yeah, it's I never put up my own fur until, well, the first couple of years I coyote hunted and did some trapping and stuff. We'd just pile the carcasses, the few that I had, because I didn't have a lot of time when I first started, and I just would sell them that way. And then I had a neighbor that, and I remember this, I had a neighbor that kind of got me more into the trapping part, because I was already coyote hunting, but he got me more into the trapping and snaring. And I remember it because I must have been weak. I don't remember. So I was sitting over there and I was trying to skin this raccoon, or it was a coyote or something, and I was struggling. I'm like, this is tough. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have the right, my muscle in my arm and my shoulder. I just don't have that muscle. This is ridiculous. And I remember the first time I ever flushed a coyote, and I was scraping. And of course, you learn stuff over time, and about what not to flesh, and what to flesh, and what you have to flesh. And I remember, I swear it took me an hour to flush that coyote, the first one I ever did. I'm like, it right now, it takes, a few minutes if everything's good, and I just remember back to that, how, yeah, I wasn't very efficient and very good at the time. And it was tough. And I'm like, I didn't have the know-how. I didn't have the muscle memory. I didn't have anything. And I felt like this is a lot of work. Well, then after a while, you start doing it, like you said, you get pretty efficient at it. And then it's kind of like just riding a bike at that point.
Yeah, I exactly, and that's funny you talk about fleshing them and it taking you so long. I can't remember how many times I've been in that fur shed, just fleshing, just I don't maybe one day I fleshed 50, 60, 70
Oh,
coyotes, and just my forearms just
ah,
cramping so bad, and my hands locking up, and I'm like, I can't do anymore. I physically can't flesh another coyote. Like I gotta go up to the house and take a break.
Yeah, I had well, it was about 3 winters ago, and we really got into doing a lot of coyotes, and I had one hand I used a certain way when I was skinning or fleshing or something, and I think it was when I was fleshing. But there was one time I was kind of getting a little worried because my hand, like, either I couldn't make a fist or my hand was in a fist and I couldn't release it back out.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I know what you mean. Your hand, you put your fist, or you put your hand into a fist, excuse me, and it cramps up, and you got to grab. I remember grabbing my other hand and having to pry it open. And I
Yes.
remember reading on the internet to eat bananas. Apparently, they help with cramping. So I'd have a whole bunch of bananas down there, and I'd be eating bananas thinking it would help out. I don't know if it actually did or not, but
Yeah, I just remember when that happened, I'm like, okay, I think I'm a little overdoing it. I think I gotta take care of myself a little better or do something different. This is ridiculous. I could not hardly open my hand, and then my hand would like just spontaneously move by itself one time. I wouldn't even, I'm like, hold on, this isn't good. So
yeah, I love talking about the fur handling aspect of the coyote deal. Like, I love that. I love going down in the fur shed and putting a podcast on, or I think
yeah.
I have ADD, so I always have about, 3 different things going at once. But I love to put a podcast on or some music and have some hot coffee and just kind of get in my own world down there and work on my coyotes. And I'd probably enjoy that just as much as I do hunting them.
Well, that's funny you say that because the first time I ever shot my own coyote, skinned my own coyote, and fleshed my own coyote and put it up, when I was done, of course, I didn't do anything with the blood. And this is when we sent it up. This is when I had a couple, and this guy was teaching me how to do it. And we'd send them up to the auction. I had like a couple the first year. And I looked at that coyote. It was the ugliest thing because the blood was still on it, but I combed it all out and tried to get as much out as possible. And I don't know if I had a hole in it or I don't know if I learned to sew yet, but I thought to myself, this is pretty cool. I killed that animal.
Yeah.
I went through the process, and really rewarding to me. And I tell people that when we talk about fur handling is it's really a rewarding process. I mean, anybody can go, I'm not going to say, I mean, anybody can go and kill an animal and sell it to somebody and not have to deal with it. Sometimes putting it up yourself and going through the whole process is almost as rewarding as, like you said, going out and actually finding that animal and killing it. I mean, there's just something about it.
It's you're totally right. When you're sitting there and you have 100 beautiful coyotes skinned and stretched that you put the work in, you killed them, you brought them home, you did all the work on them and took care of them, and they're all sitting in front of you. That's a pretty gratifying feeling. I know exactly what you mean. And then it's a cherry on top when the fur market was good, and then you go sell them all, and the fur buyer hands you a check for 10 grand, and you're
Yeah.
feeling pretty, you're feeling pretty good.
That's the cherry on top. It's like, dang. But I don't know if you ever, I'm not gonna put words in your mouth, but answer this if you can.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and of course, sometimes I didn't want to see my coyotes leave the fur shed. like,
No, I know what you mean.
Like, when I set them off, I'm like, okay, I bought these things or I shot these things. I mean, when I was buying, I have to sell them. But when I'm thinking, I'm looking at them sitting there, and they've been on the fur racks for 3-4 weeks before I set them off. I'm like, gosh, what am I going to look at now? There's nothing left in here. It's like I hate to see them go. I don't
No, that's funny you say that. I was the same way because Marty would always be like, "When are you going to sell these coyotes?" I'm like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll sell them." And I just like have them. I love having them hanging there looking at them. But
Yeah.
then you end up with 200-300 sitting there, and I'm like, I probably should get rid of these in case somebody decides that they're going to break into my fur shed or something, and I have 15 grand of coyotes hanging here. I probably need to get rid of them. It's probably time. But then when you sell them, it's you're kind of sad to see them go.
Yeah, and then after a while, like, okay, well, I guess we got to go get more. I mean, it's a vicious cycle. It's kind of like you're selling your favorite pickup, but you got to sell it because you're getting something different. But it's like, I like to look at that thing, and I did all that work, and I'm like, I hope they treat them well when I sell them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and when I first started doing it too, I mean, I like the first few sales I made, I was like, I don't know if the fur buyer is gonna like these coyotes. I hope I did a good job, And I remember bringing them in to the fur buyer and the fur buyer just being blown away, like, oh, these were done so well, and just I was just so proud, I was so proud that I did them right and I did a good job on them and that the fur buyer liked them. And yeah, the whole process is, it's hard to explain, but yeah, for people who have done it, they know what I'm talking about. It's super gratifying.
I would imagine that anybody that we talk to, they'd say the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I want to, because I have a YouTube channel now too. I want to do some like some fur handling videos and some show off a lot of like the the tricks that I've learned. And the shitty part is that there's no fur market now, so I don't know if many guys care anymore. But it might come back someday. And if that's on the internet, for younger people to go on there and be able to watch videos and learn, because that that would have meant so much to me if I could have went on YouTube and found more content about, okay, this is how. This is a shortcut. This is something you can do. That you can do this. You can do that. To put a coyote up.
Yeah, I think I mean, that's, I've learned a lot of stuff, just not with fur handling and coyote, but everything in life on YouTube. And I've almost thought about doing some fur handling stuff too in my first shed, just because I'm like, I might as well do some of this stuff and create some content and share with people, how to do things, especially coyotes. Because I mean, you've done a lot of coyotes, I've done a lot of coyotes. That's kind of just predominantly what I've done. So
Yeah.
I've learned a couple things along the way that I'm like, okay, if you're putting up a lot, or what matters when putting up, or a lot of the things that I learned right away from information is that you got to worry about the ears and the lips and all this kind of stuff and drying out and stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, over the years I've never had issues with that, just because of course our environmental conditions up here are not conducive to, like, really humid during the
Yeah.
year. And you get first slippage when you have big bloody spots and fur missing, basically. But yeah, just little tricks and shortcuts, not to put up a inferior product, but something that saves people time.
That's funny you say that, because I'd have people come in the fur shed who I guess thought they knew a lot about putting a coyote up, and, oh, you got to trim these lips, off, and, oh, this ear you messed up. And those are like the most minor thing. If you
Yeah.
have a good coyote, you have a good coyote. I don't care what the lips look like or if the ears aren't peeled back perfect. I mean, if the coyote's good, you didn't blow a big hole in it, you cleaned them up, you did a good job fleshing them, you stretched them straight. I mean, you're going to do good on your coyote. There's a lot of little nuanced stuff that really doesn't matter at the end of the day.
It really doesn't. And that's like when we grade coyotes, it's kind of the same way. It's like, you know what you got. There's certain things you look for, and like you said, the ears, the lips. I mean, I don't care if an eye hole is 4 times bigger than what it's supposed to be. I mean, it doesn't matter because you don't use an eye hole, right? So I mean,
Exactly.
stuff like that, it's kind of like, it doesn't really matter to me, because when they go to dressing, they're going to get dressed. When they go to the manufacturer, they cut the heads off anyway, so it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that's just it too. And I mean, you still want to take pride in your work and
Yeah.
have everything be uniform. But yeah, if you have one coyote or two coyotes that you tear the eye wide open on it, at the end of the day, it's not gonna affect your dollar.
No. So let's get into some of the fun stuff that people might be interested in, is like, guns and optics and calls and stuff like that. I mean, of course you can kill a coyote with whatever gun you have, and you can make lip squeaks if you're in the right area with your lips and probably call a coyote in. But how do you go about finding your gun and your optic and the calls these type use? If somebody's trying to get into this, what do you suggest for that type of stuff?
Yeah, so I would say most guys probably get a little too wrapped up in
Yeah.
calibers and bullets and whatever. I mean, if you have a gun you're comfortable shooting, I don't care if it's your 270, you shot deer with your whole life, just do that. And
Right.
if you have a gun you're comfortable 223 all the way up to whatever that you're comfortable killing coyotes or killing stuff with, that you've shot a lot, that's what I would recommend. You can kill a coyote with whatever gun you want. I mean, it's more of a something that you have some history with and that you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like to switch rifles a lot, because once you really start, I even want my day rifle and my night rifle. If they're not the same caliber, I still want the same stock. I want the same trigger. I want the same trigger pull. I want everything identical. So when I switch over from day to night hunting, I'm not, it's not a big adjustment, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you get into the weeds at all on ammo reloading and stuff like
Yeah.
that?
So I do all my own reloading, and I'll shoot. Like this year, I'm going to shoot a 22 Creedmoor. I'm going to shoot a 22 Creedmoor at night with a 52 grain bullet, And my day rifle, I'm going to shoot a 6 millimeter Creedmoor. So a 22 Creedmoor, all that is a 6 millimeter Creedmoor neck down to
Okay.
22.
Yeah.
So I'll shoot the 6 millimeter Creedmoor in the daylight just because I can really push it long distance. I can shoot 900 yards with it. And then my 22 Creedmoor at night with that 52 grain bullet, it's 4,000 feet per second. And the name of the game at night, especially, is you want something super flat. You can hold dead on out to 300 because judging distance at night is very, very, very difficult.
That's what I found too. Yeah, very difficult.
Now I have a rangefinder in my thermal, so I'm kind of cheating now. But
Well,
yeah, the name of the game is flat shooting at night, especially, and so that's why I shoot that 22 Creedmoor at night. As far as scopes, day calling, I like to use Leopold scopes. Pretty much anything Leopold, I'm a fan of. They make a really good product. And for night hunting, I guess it's kind of whatever you can afford. I have a Halo XRF that I really like, and I've had good luck with that.
so when you set up your distances when you're shooting, like you mentioned at night from like 0 to 300, are you setting up your gun to shoot from 0 to 300? Just put the crosshair on the
Yep.
animal. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's but at night especially. So you could sight in just a touch high at 200, and that's going to put you dead on from 100 yards all the way up to 300 yards, and it's kind of you don't really have to think about it then. But also with my night setup, I have a holdover reticle in that inside. It's just like a day optic, but a
Yeah.
night optic with a holdover reticle. So I'll dial my holdovers in out to 500 with that rangefinder now inside that thermal. I can make those long distance calculations and kills on coyotes at 350, 450, which is a big deal at night.
What about the day? I mean, what's realistic as far as, of course, people want to shoot coyotes at 100 yards. That's what I want to do. What's a realistic sight in for day calling?
Yeah, so I'll go dead on it. Basically, same as night hunting. I'll go dead on at 200, and but I'll have my, I'll have a turret dialed in for the reload I'm shooting, and like with that 6 millimeter, I'm shooting a 105 grain bullet with that, and which sounds kind of overkill, but it actually is surprisingly on fur. It's damn good, and I mean, I think the furthest kill I've made is like 1,017 on a coyote with that.
Oh wow.
But I mean, obviously that's an outlier. But I mean, you can get super proficient out to 500 yards. I mean, if you put in the range time with a rifle out to 500, you have a good scope. You're confident with your turret. You're confident with your load. Out to 500, 600 yards. I mean, you can consistently be killing coyotes.
So what kind of bullet is that 105 grain bullet?
Yeah, so it's actually a 105 grain Hornady AMAX.
Okay.
It's discontinued actually, but I bought like 5,000 of them years ago. So I'm just going to shoot all those up, and then when those dry up, I'll figure out something different.
So that's pretty friendly on fur then, or?
It's not bad at all. Yeah, if you chest shoot them or get that broadside shot and put it in their lungs, it's 9 times out of 10 you hardly even have a hole. Now, if you hit bone or shoot one running, it's different. But especially with the tournament hunting, I don't want to have any coyotes get away, so I'd rather just up my caliber and shoot a little bit bigger bullet, and then you have the long range capability. But when the fur market was really, really good, I didn't shoot anything like that. I shot all 20 calibers with a 32 grain bullet just because I didn't want to have to sew anything.
Did that 32 grain, was that did that tear up any fur, that smaller grain, or not too bad?
Not bad at all. I mean, rarely. Yeah,
Yeah.
They're really, those 32 grain VMAXs are, I mean, they're a hammer. Obviously, you don't have the long range capability anymore, but 300 and in, you hit them right, it puts them down.
Well, the velocity of that sucker must be just flying at that low. I mean,
yeah. So that's right around 4,000. That's right around 4,000 feet per second as well.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fun to shoot too, especially with a suppressor. I mean, there's no recoil. It's so quiet. It's like you're shooting a pellet rifle. It's so much fun.
Coyotes don't have a chance.
No, they don't have a chance. Especially the best is like you have a crisp, cool morning, and you just got maybe a light dusting of snow, and I'll prone out when I coyote call. I'm always proned out on the ground. So something about that fresh powder, it just muffles the noise.
Yeah.
Like to an extent that's unbelievable. I've had many times I'll shoot a double or a triple, and Mario will come back over the hill, and he'll say, "Did you see anything?" And I said, "Yeah, I shot 3," and he didn't even hear me shoot. So, yeah, those suppressors are a hoot.
Yeah, they're really fun, and I've yet to buy one. My brother,
You have to get one.
yeah, I've been putting it off because I'm like, but yeah, I got to get one, and I
Yeah.
think it's on the list, and since the fur market's down now, I might not be skinning as many animals in the couple winters coming up. I might have more time to hunt. So,
What do you think's going to happen? Do you think they're going to be unsellable, or do you think we'll have a little bit of a market, or what are you thinking?
well, I think that it's not going to get okay. So let's back up a second. So back when the market was really good, so we're talking like 2010ish, 12 to let's say 21. Let's say the end of 21. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just say 10 years there. So I think that there was so much volume needed for coyote skins that, of course, the price was ungodly high for really good ones. I mean, and you sold some really high priced coyotes over the years, and the volume was there. And the Canada Goose Jacket thing drove all that, and they were ramping up big time over those years. There was a little dip there one time, but then it came back up again. And one of the mistakes I think that the people using those skins were making, and I don't know how many times you've looked at a Canada Goose Jacket in Shields over the years, and look at that fur on there, and you're like, because here's what they wanted. They wanted heavy Western heavies. First, they started out saying, we want pretty much all heavy Western coyotes, right? So they're like grade number 1. They got thick under fur, so they hold the guard hairs up, because what goes on the collar, that hair needs to be sticking out, right? Well, I was in Shields several times during those years, and once in a while you'll still see a coat there. And I'm looking at that coyote ruff, and I'm like thinking, okay, that's not a North Dakota coyote. I mean, that's ridiculous. That coyote looks like it was never shot in North Dakota.
I know exactly what you mean. It's funny because I'll be like hanging out with friends, and a lot of these like celebrities, or we'll be watching like UFC fights or boxing, and someone will walk in, with their Canada Goose Jacket with their park on, and someone will be like, Mitchell, that's probably a coyote you shot on that parka right there, and I'll be like, no, that's a shitty coyote. I said, that's not a North Dakota coyote.
so what kind of happened, I think, is right away they really wanted this really high end stuff, and honestly, for people that aren't fur people, and it kind of goes when I sell hats and make stuff for people too. People don't know what good fur looks like. Okay.
Yep.
So here's the difference. You and I, we put up fur, we sell to fur buyers. We know what good fur is like because we see it graded. Over the years, you just know, right? So I think here's what happened. Here's my opinion. So they really wanted Western heavies. They wanted the best Western heavies because that's what looked great. And it does look great. A Western heavy versus a semi-heavy, it looks terrible, right? So what happened, I think, is that they just needed more skins. And you and I both know, based on the coyotes that you sold over the years, based on the coyotes I've sold over the years, there's only a certain percentage of number 1s in the whole country. Like there's way more 2s and 3s because that number 1 coyote, it's hard on a true grade, really hard to get those. So I think what happened is that the manufacturers and the buyers, the big buyers that were actually making these jackets, they're like, okay, we're going to start slipping in some of this lower quality stuff.
Yeah.
And of course it didn't necessarily inflate the market, but it kind of did, because all of a sudden now people were trying to get as many coyotes as they were. All these buyers trying to get as many coyotes as they were. Of course, the price went up because so then they started putting all this crappy fur, in my opinion, on these hoods.
Yep.
And it was like, yeah, that's not a North Dakota coyote. I mean, or a Montana coyote either, or Saskatchewan or Alberta. I mean, Saskatchewan's got probably one of the best coyotes in the world. Just kind of like where you hunt and where I hunt. They're like pretty much I don't care what people say. They're pretty much the best coyotes in the world. Saskatchewan is right there, right? So they kind of started getting cheap on the coyote fur as far as the quality, and then all of a sudden they decided not to make coyote ruffs anymore because I think they got a lot of pressure from lots of other stuff. There's some other people out there that think there's more conspiracy to it than that. I really don't think there is. The market dried up, and so back to my whole thing. So there's a big volume demand, and they were using other skins than number 1 Western heavies. Now, if you have a number 1 Western heavy that's the best, you're still going to be able to sell it. Now, I'm not sure who's going to buy it. The price is going to be lower, but you're always going to be able to sell good, really quality goods. But the
Yeah.
thing is that there's not going to be the volume demand like there used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people that put up and they want to do the fur harvesting, they want to trap, they want to call, they want to hunt, and they put up their fur. I think now that people are going to have to do a little bit more searching around to see who wants the good fur, and whether that means sell it to the auction, which I'm not a big proponent of. That means getting into more relationship with some of these fur buyers to say, hey, I got X amount of skins. I want to make sure I can sell them, because I mean, you want to get a reward. You want to go out and hunt. You want to get a reward for putting up your fur. I mean,
Yeah.
I bought coyotes this year. I don't know how many I bought. I didn't buy very many, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to sell them. And if I did, it was going to be for $5-6 a piece, or $10 maybe for the good ones. So I tanned all mine. I'm going to make some gloves and all that sort of thing. This coming year, like, you go back to your question about the fur market's going to be. As of right now, I would be very, very surprised if people can move hardly any coyotes this year. Now, things might change. I mean, the whole Russia China thing is throwing a big wrench in everything, just not fur, but China used to export a ton of stuff to Russia. Russia used to wear fur. Ukraine used to make fur stuff, and they bought stuff from everywhere. I mean, when everybody's at war, I think the last thing in their mind is buying a fur hat. And then the whole Canada Goose Jacket thing. I mean, I hate to sound like oh, the world's come to end in the fur industry, but man, it's just the demand is like shut off completely. But we're lucky, and I tell people that the people that live up in North Dakota, especially the northern half of North Dakota, where the coyotes used to be high priced, the fur is the best in the world. And people that want those heavy goods, you're going to be able to sell them at some point. Now, what the market price is going to be, I have no idea. That's the hard part.
That's the other thing, dude, is I don't know how many people on my Facebook and Instagram like just will just message me and say, "Hey, can I buy a tan coyote or 2 tan coyotes from you?" I could sell I think I could cherry pick the good coyotes, and I could get them tanned and just sell them myself, I really think that I bet if I tanned 100 coyotes a winter, I bet I could sell them all in a couple months.
Yeah, and that's what people started doing. I know and I don't know, and I started to put some inventory up on my Etsy page just for, and this time of year is kind of a bad time of year, but you start getting to see a little bit more traffic now. I am anyway. But that's the thing. A lot of people started to do that. Now, here's the thing. Here's another good thing about the type of fur that we have up here. It's really nice fur. And once people start realizing that you can buy really nice fur for not a lot of money, but we still get a reward for it that's hanging on the wall, or you put it on a table, or whatever people are doing with it. I think a person can sell some of that stuff. Now, it might be a longer process of selling. You buy, you get them tanned, and you sell them, and maybe it takes you 3 months to sell them, or maybe it takes a year to sell them, or whatever. But I think there's a demand out there for that, for good skins, especially the good color, really heavy stuff. I mean, I've learned over the past 6 months how there's a lot of, right after the market kind of crashed, a lot of touristy shops and nickel and dime stores and just mom and pop shops were selling skins. Like, they'd park on the side of the road. This is coming from somebody else that told me people would park on the side of the road and put up a little pop-up shop, and they'd sell skins. It's like people would buy them. They just buy them like crazy, I guess. And
Really?
that's what I heard. And that's been a couple of years now. But people, I think, if the product is out in front of people, I think
Exactly.
that's the problem. Like, for me, I started an Etsy page this last December because I need to have more people to my website, and it's so expensive to drive traffic to just my regular website that nobody was going there. So I went to an Etsy page. So there's already millions of people going there already, and of course I started selling right away, and I've done okay. I haven't break the bank on it, but I've done okay. And it's just about getting the stuff in front of people to see, because especially with wearing products, especially with wearing fur products, I keep telling people it's cold up here. And and everybody knows it's cold, but and they put on a beanie, a knit beanie, or a stocking cap or something. Until you put on a fur hat and you are out there when it's cold, if you want to be outside when it's cold in the wintertime, put on a fur hat. You'll never wear anything else. But you have to get the product in front of them, and that's that. But once you get that product in front of them, I think you can sell some stuff.
Yeah, that's just it. And I've had a couple fur hats that I've had made for people close to me, and you give them something like that. It's just so unique and such a cool thing to have, And I mean, there's nobody else who has something like that. You know, a coyote that I killed and I
Yeah.
took care of, and I didn't make the hat, but I had it made. You know, it's just something unique and original and neat. And um, even with a tanned coyote, if you put your hands on one, like a coyote from North Dakota, a coyote from Eastern Montana, you put your hands on a coyote like that and actually can hold it and look at it and think, oh, I could hang this on my fireplace or I could hang this in my cabin. People, you know, that gravitate towards that rather than just seeing it on your computer. You know.
Yeah, funny story you say that because we had an all school reunion in Sherwood here in July, and I had a little table with. I started making these can koozies out of beaver, which are kind of cool. And I've sold quite a few of them. I'm kind of surprised. It's a little novelty item, but people think they're cool. And then I had a couple hats there and just some skin or pillows or skins or whatever. And I'll tell you what, kids came by the most, and they just touched that fur. And anytime you have fur, and I've seen this all over, and I've heard other people say it, somebody's got fur at the table or something like that, everybody's got to come by. Now, they might not be interested and they might not buy anything and they might not even know what it is, but they come by and they feel it and they're like, wow, that's really cool. And especially the kids are like, wow, that's really cool. And I always go back to saying that these kids need to get more involved in this fur harvesting to keep the tradition going on. But it just goes to show you put you put something in front of people, they don't really, that's like you said, it's unique. They don't think about it other than if they see it somewhere because it's not
Yep.
mainstream, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So
Exactly.
it's cool that way. And that's something I try to do is try to get stuff out in front of people just so they can see it and know that it's there and it's really nice. And like you said,
That's what I'm going to do this year. Is I'm going to have a whole pile of them tanned and just try to move, just to see if I can move them that way. You know, because dude, selling a freaking number one, number two coyote for skinned and stretched for 15 or $20, I'm not doing that anymore. Like,
yeah, it's not.
I'll hang on to them myself, even if it means they're sitting in my house for a year or two. Like, I mean, they're just such a valuable commodity, and they're so unique. I'm not giving them away anymore. Is my point.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at. Like I said, I knew going into this last season I wasn't really gonna sell anything, and I maybe could have found somewhere to sell them, but it was like, I'm getting more into making stuff and selling skins and doing that sort of thing, and I'm like, I'm not gonna put in, a half hour, I'm not even gonna put in a half or whatever it takes if you have to sew or whatever, and then buy the coyote for $5, which is kind of criminal, and the fact that I hate giving people $5 for a coyote that I was paying 75 for 2 years before, but it was like they wanted to get rid of them, and I'm like, well, okay, $5-10. I mean, some of the bad ones I didn't even buy this year because I'm like, well, they're not worth it. They're rock pile material, right? The birds have to eat, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, I am not gonna give a coyote away and all that work and just that's what I did is I bought the better ones. I paid probably 10-15 for the really good ones this last year, and then some of the ones that weren't as great, I'd say, well, I really don't want them. I'll give them $5 anyway. That same thing. It was like, you know what? I'm going to get them tanned. I'm going to do some stuff with them, have some stuff on hand. Somebody wants to buy a skin. I'm trying to make some blankets and some pillows and all that kind of stuff to have on hand and get the product out in front of people that way. Because I think at this point with the fur market the way it is, that's going to be, more worth your while than trying to pawn off 100 skins somewhere to get like even $30-35 for them, which I don't know if that's going to happen this year. So
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is, I mean, for me too, and you as well, probably you kind of develop. I don't want to say a following, but I mean, I have a lot of people that I know, and I have a lot of like my whole probably 95% of my Facebook friends list is just like-minded people who hunt.
yeah.
Same with my Instagram, and like I said, there's more people out there that are looking for something like that than you think, like a nice tan coyote. So I think a guy, if he pursues it and tries to move some that way, I think you do better than you think. Like I said, rather than selling them to a country buyer and basically giving them away.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, and it's the wholesale market. It's the wholesale market versus the retail market, and the wholesale market
Yeah.
when it gets bad like this, it's bad. And I don't imagine a lot of country buyers running around. I mean, there's going to be one guy in particular probably that's going to run around and buy a bunch of coyotes. I don't know. I just have a feeling, but for what I have no idea. But anyway, I think that there's going to be, no really sense in going out and these country buyers buying all this stuff. Otherwise, other than just them maybe run a few trips to get some inventory, get some inventory for when somebody calls and say, hey, I need 100 coyotes or 100 raccoons. I mean, what do you have? I mean, because buyers and fur places still need to have a little bit of inventory, but that's the thing. It's like, I don't like giving people $5 for an animal that took them a long time to get and a lot of money. But it's like when the market's the market and they want to get rid of it, I mean, you kind of have to. But to be able to get more out of that skin, like what you talked about, I think is the way that the fur industry in the United States at least is going. Because when the market kind of went down here, I've had some conversations with some people about the crafting industry kind of taking off a little bit, and I know that the Idaho fur sale the last couple of ones have been quite high for in a down market, and everybody's kind of like, what's going on? Other than the beaver, I mean, there's a big time beaver influx, and there's still going to be a pretty good market for beaver this year compared to what it was years ago. And they said, well, yeah, there's these people coming in and buying skins, whether they're reselling the skins or whether they're crafting with them and selling hats and pillows and whatever. I said, I think there's a resurgence in that because from what I understand, there's a lot more people out there that are doing crafting stuff like myself. They're actually, turning quite a bit of skins over making things. And
Yep.
you just don't see a lot of it because it's not an industry type thing and you don't see a lot of visibility into it. But I really think that there's a resurgence of people wanting that type of stuff. So, the overseas fur market right now is all but dead. And I think in order to keep people doing it in the United States, I think that some of this crafting stuff kind of has to take place of that a little bit. Now, then that's the thing. So the thing with that is that there's going to be demand out there, but it's the volume thing that's not going to be there, right? So
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, it's all exciting stuff when you think about it because it's a different way of marketing your goods. You just have to have that plan in place and say, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. Stick with it. Find some good outlets, and that's the hard part because to get somebody to adopt something that's kind of new to them, so to speak. Because I mean, as well as I mean, harvesting fur is not something that people do as much as they used to. I mean, they're more into hunting geese and hunting birds, pheasants, and deer. I mean, so they don't see a byproduct off of that other than just meat in the freezer, which but like the fur thing, once you start seeing people using it, maybe there'll be an uptick in it. That's what I'm hoping anyway. I mean, maybe it's maybe I'm hoping too much, but that's kind of what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Because there's going to be a lot of people out there just like us, probably trying to figure that out. But figuring out your niche and how you're going to do it. So it's kind of.
I don't think though, but I don't think you have as many people ambitious about
No, you don't.
talking like we're talking. It's kind of for me too. It's basically been a lifestyle for the past 10 years.
That's
so I'm going to go the
word is lifestyle, right? You're right.
Yeah, I'm going to go the extra mile to figure out what I can do to to be profitable at it and still be able to go out and shoot coyotes and make some money off them. Because let's be honest, like you shoot $80 coyotes for 5 years in a row, and then you're shooting $10 coyotes. You're not going to have you're not like last winter. I didn't have the ambition anymore. I'm sitting on the couch and I got a home cooked meal sitting there and I'm watching TV. I'm thinking, yeah, I could go freeze my ass off all night for $5 coyotes. I don't think I'm going to.
No. And like you said, the people that are really into it, like yourself, when about 4 years ago, when the fur market was really strong, I'd go into Minot once every Wednesday with my pickup and trailer, and I'd pick up coyotes from guys. I'd do a stop in the evening, like 7:00 at night, and I would see people, and that's how the market was so good, is that you'd see a guy or a gal bring one coyote in or one thing or whatever, and you could tell they just weren't into it, and they just were getting there because the market was high. So you have those people that are just opportunistic that way. It's like a weekend warrior, which there's nothing wrong with that. But that's kind of what you're talking about as far as being committed to, like you said, your lifestyle. Like you're going to try to figure out how to make this work so the reward's a little bit more than a $15 bill versus when it used to be $85, $100.
Yeah.
So that
honestly, I could have used a year off of the skinning and stretching coyotes because man, that I put more time into that than I did my full-time job. I mean, starting like October 25th to February, I mean, I don't know how many hours I put into it, but between the hunting and the fur handling, I mean, it's pretty much hunting, fur handling, and sleeping. That's pretty much all you're doing. You know,
Well,
the fur
yeah,
handling takes time.
I know what you're saying because usually my wife doesn't necessarily like she once October comes around, she knows she's not going to see me very much until like March and April, and sometimes I get the look, and it hasn't been so bad in the last couple of years because it hasn't been as busy. But my brother was saying the same thing this last winter. He didn't really put up much fur at all, and he did some trapping and some night calling stuff and stuff like. And I put up some of the fur for him, but I kind of started thinking towards the end of the year, I wasn't quite as busy as I was in previous years. I'm like, this isn't too bad. I mean, there was many years there, like every night after work, come home, spend 3-4 hours in the fur shed, get up, go to work, come home, do the same thing. And it wears on a guy, I
Yeah.
mean, by the time you're in the fur shed, I mean, anybody that's listened to this podcast, you know what we're talking about. When you spend 3-4 months in the fur shed, like at least 3-4 nights a week, in my case, I had to be in there every night of the week because I had to get them put up and sell them. I mean, it wears on a person, and that little break, it kind of rejuvenates you a little bit. It's kind of like, okay, you took us some time off. I mean, I really like to do it, but God, it's a lot of work, and especially with the market the way it was, it's like, is this really worth it? And so yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of like, take a break for a second. It's like, I don't have to go and skin those coyotes because they've been sitting there for 2 days on the floor. I mean,
Yeah. I don't know how many times I went into that walk-in freezer and I'm thinking, I probably got like 30 or 40 in here, and I drag them all over to the shop and lay them on the ground to unthaw, and I start counting. I'm like, okay, I got 85 coyotes laying here, and they're all unthawing at the same time. And I remember just being in there, just skinning coyotes for, 12, 14 hours at a time. And you get down to like, 10, 20 left. And all I want is to be done. I just want to be out of there. The skinning's the worst part for me. After that, it's not too bad because you can kind of regulate it. Then you could take a few out of the freezer and, flesh them and finish them. But once you commit to skinning, you got 80 coyotes laying there and they're all unthawed. It's time to get after it,
Yeah,
and
no, I know what you mean.
you got to get them skinned, and you get to the end and you're just like, all I want to do is go up to the house and sit down on the couch, but I got to get these coyotes skinned.
Yeah, I started what I started doing there for a while is I'd thaw them out, I'd skin them, and then I just throw them right back in the freezer, and I'd be like, okay, I'm just gonna go through and skin however many I can skin. I'm gonna roll them up, I'm gonna put them in the freezer, and I'll put them up at a different time. And that was kind of a good strategy on my part later in the season, because when it was getting warmer, because I didn't have a walk-in freezer, and once it starts to get a little warmer, I had to kind of get more done. But
yeah, so my process with that is what I'll do is I have like 5 or 6 chest freezers in the shop there. So I'll skin them, and if there's a big hole in them, like a like a softball or bigger size hole, I'll wrap their nose in duct tape, and then I'll put them in the freezer, and that way I know that's a bad damage. And then the ones with minimal to no damage, I would just leave. I wouldn't put tape on their nose. So when I'm going through them, I know, okay, that's a bad damage. I'm gonna leave that one, so I can just get a bunch of numbers done. And then maybe at the end of the season, or when I have some bad weather where I can't hunt, I can go back and deal with those damaged ones. Because you know how it is. You could do 5 undamaged coyotes just as quick as you can do 1 bad damage.
There was one time there was a coyote that I was bound and determined to sew up some holes on, and I couldn't believe I did it. I think I spent 45 minutes to an hour sewing up holes in that thing, and after I was done, I'm like, I just wasted an hour on one coyote. This is ridiculous. I mean,
yeah, and that kills you when you're trying to get numbers done, and you sit there and dick around with 1 bad damage when you could have just ran through. Like, if you got clean coyotes with no sewing, man, you get them on that fleshing board, you can get some shit done in a hurry.
Yeah, it doesn't take long on a clean coyote. It doesn't take long to flesh them out and put them on a board. I mean, it like you can get it done. I don't know how long it takes you, but I mean, if everything's coming off fine and there's no like holes you have to worry about, like bigger holes, or just fleshing it clean. I mean, 5-6 minutes, you can have that thing fleshed off really easy, especially the older, thicker, bigger coyotes. That the leather just seems on the older coyotes, the white creamy leather, it just fleshes off way easier, and it doesn't take very long.
No, I actually kind of enjoy fleshing them. That's probably my favorite part of the process is fleshing them.
Maybe it's because at that point it's done.
And then you put them exactly, and then from there you get them on. I have a fur dryer set up it dries them inside out, so I don't have to flip them.
Yeah.
And so once you throw them on that thing, you're home free. Let's say I
Yeah.
could put 30 coyotes on there. It was always a good feeling to get 30 on there because I knew at that point I couldn't do anything else. I had to wait. I had to let them dry before I could get going again. So you get 30 on there, and it's a pretty gratifying feeling. Then you're like, all right, I can go back out hunting now, or I can go do what I need to do.
Yeah. I got the same feelings going through my head when I'm getting there too. It's like, I think everybody that puts fur up and does a lot of work in that, I think everybody's kind of in the same boat there. They kind of know exactly at what process during what process you're in during that whole thing. When you're like, oh, I got coyotes on the ground, I got to get them done. It's like, huh, okay, I got like 10 clean coyotes. That shouldn't take me very long to flesh. And then at the end, you're like, okay, they're on the board. I got 30 done. Now I'm going to whatever, I mean, but
Yeah, and I even got to the point where I was skinning a lot of them in the field when they're warm,
oh, sure.
and you're going to kill a few less every time you go just because you're using some of your time to skin. But there's nothing better than getting back from a hunt and all your coyotes are already skinned.
Yeah, right, right. So a couple more things here before we wrap it up. So you've been dealing with the little YouTube videos. You put some YouTube stuff out there.
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel now. It's if you search "Coyotes Forever" on YouTube, it should pull it up. And I think I don't have a ton of videos. I think I have around 10 videos, but
Okay.
this year I'm really gonna go for it big time with the YouTube, and because for when we go hunting, when the fur market's good, all we're thinking is numbers. For every coyote I kill, that's money in the bank.
Yep.
Now it's more so, well, the fur market's not as good, so let's focus on something different. And I enjoy it. It's fun to do. So I upgraded some equipment. I got a new camera, a new tripod,
Oh,
and
nice.
I kind of figured out how to edit some videos. So I'm really looking forward to it. Actually, I'm gonna try to pump out some videos this fall so people can go watch something on YouTube. And I'm gonna do some fur handling stuff too, just to have those on there too, and maybe like a little bit of a library for people who are, because I still get a lot of questions from people about fur handling, even with the fur market not being any good. So
Yeah.
then I can send them that way and they can watch my YouTube video.
So that's called Coyotes Forever on YouTube.
Yeah, you just YouTube Coyotes Forever. Yep.
So one last question here, because I know you kill a lot of coyotes in the year, and anytime, and I'm going to tell you, Mitch, anytime I talk with somebody about coyotes, they're like, "Hey, you know that guy from Williston?" I'm like, you mean the one that kills a ton of coyotes?" It's like, "Yeah, you see what he's got on his Instagram?" I'm like, "I know who he is," but it's all like that guy from Williston. I'm like, yeah, there's only one guy from Williston I know that puts up coyotes like that. So I just want to let you know that people know the guy from Williston that puts up a lot of coyotes. But anyway, when you start out in the season and stuff, I mean, do you have goals, or do you just kill what you can kill in your time allotted? I mean, how do you go about because everybody
Yeah.
likes to have goals,
Yeah. So I've always tried. Marty and I we're a 2-man show, and we always tried to kill 500 in a season, and we never made it. But that was always our goal: is let's get 500, let's get 500, let's get 500. And I think the most we ever killed from October, like the end of October to February, was one year we killed 400. I think 450 or 460.
Wow,
So yeah, but most years, we'll kill anywhere from 350 to 400. That's pretty standard.
that's a lot. That's a lot of fur on the ground, boy. Oh,
Yeah, when we had those, remember those like 2 dry winters we had when there was no
yeah,
snow?
yeah.
Those are the years that I mean, it was an annihilation. I mean,
Huh.
we killed, it was just a plague. We went out there and just eradicated them. And that's when thermal was out and nobody really knew about it yet. So I think we were the only 2 people in the county that had thermals. So we were running around with no snow on the ground with thermals and just, we were really stacking them up. But yeah, no, we have goals for sure as far as numbers, but anymore, I don't think I'll get as wrapped up with that. Probably going to get more wrapped up with just trying to get some good video and make some cool YouTube videos and just just go out and have a fun time. That's the other thing, is it kind of turns into a job. And when the fur market was good, especially, and you're up all night, it starts to wear on a guy, and you start to, like, I remember there's times Marty and I were hunting where we weren't even getting along anymore just because we're always tired. Guy misses a coyote or something, or I'm thinking it's 5 a.m. I'm like, I think I'm ready to go home and go to bed. And Marty, I can go hard. I can go really hard. But Marty, he's not human. I mean, that guy could probably stay up for a week straight if he wanted to, I think, and live on sweet tea and sour cream and onion chips. I mean, he's
That's
still
crazy.
this guy's a legend. I mean, he can hunt hard, and so can I. So I mean, we kind of push each other. It'll be, let's say it's 5 a.m, and I was like, "Do you want to make another stand?" He's never going to say no, and I'm never going to say no, because it's almost like who's gonna puss out. It's not going to be
Yeah.
me. It's not going to be him. So no, we're going to keep hunting, and so yeah, that competitive drive is something that we both have, and definitely adds to the amount of coyotes that we're able to kill it every winter.
Yeah, that's cool. I think it's fun to have a hunting partner, but it's probably even better to have somebody that just is as passionate and hard charging as you, just because it just makes you want to do it, and it's fun at the time. But I can understand spending a lot of time with somebody after a while. It's kind of like, okay, I mean, can we take like a 20-minute break?
Yeah.
Take a day break and get back.
Yeah, or I'll be driving to the next stand, and all of a sudden I'll hear Marty over there snoring, and I'll get to the next stand and think I'm just gonna slip out the truck and I'll go make it myself. But he'll always wake up and be. I've had him fall asleep while we're calling. I mean, he'll hunt right up to the point where he can't function anymore. So I mean, I can do it too, and we did. I remember we did a tournament in Sydney. This was like 3 years ago. This was the last tournament we ever did, and I remember we scouted for like a full day, and then we went to the check-ins, got checked in, and we went and hunted for 24 hours straight. I think we were both ended up being up for like 50 hours straight.
Oh no.
And yeah, I mean, you get to a point where you're just kind of a zombie.
Yeah.
And you're functioning, but you don't know how.
A point of no return at that point.
A point of no return. But you don't forget about stuff like that. Those memories are pretty awesome.
That's that's something you'll never forget, and something you can talk about forever, and especially when it's something that you both like to do. But it's I mean, it's fun. I mean, what else is a person going to do, right? Like you said, sit on the couch and do nothing. I mean, it's just that's what kind of boils down to at the time. So
exactly.
Well, I think we're going to leave it. I think we're going to leave this episode at that. I mean, I think that's a good ending. I really enjoy talking fur and talking coyotes, especially because I really like coyote hunting and trapping and putting fur up and the whole coyote thing. And it's just unfortunate that the market's down and such, but we'll try to figure out a way to make it work anyway. But I do appreciate taking time off of Saturday, but it's really windy up here, so maybe it's windy over there too, and you can't get
it's
done.
blowing.
But I appreciate you taking time on a Saturday to hop on and we do an episode.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's fun to talk to somebody who is as passionate about the fur handling and the fur sales side as you are, because most guys just shoot them, and leave it at that. But I think I have just as much enjoyment out of the fur handling process as I do as the hunting process. So
yeah, well, it's half of the process, and it's definitely worth talking about and being good at, because that's kind of where the money's made sometimes. So
exactly.
But anyway, I think we're gonna wrap it up. And thanks again, Mitch. I think when I do this with some of my other guests, I think I'm gonna probably look you up here at the end of the season. We're gonna do a recap and see how your season went with your video stuff and how much hunting you did and stuff like that. If you're wanting to come on again, we'll probably do that. So
yeah, we'll do that for sure.
Okay, well, thanks a lot.
Sounds good. Thanks.
There you go, guys. Episode number 13. Mitch Kvernum. Hope you learned a little bit. Mitch puts up a lot of coyotes in the year, and check out his YouTube channel. His YouTube channel is Coyotes Forever. Type Coyotes Forever in YouTube search box. He's going to be putting up some content this winter, so look for that. So
can they still hear me?
Yeah, they can still hear you. Yep.
You could follow my Instagram too. It's just Mitch Kvernum, and I'll put a lot of videos on there too. And pictures and coyote hunting pictures and stuff like that. So
okay, so you got his Instagram there, Mitch Kvernum. Give him a follow on his YouTube channel, and I'm sure he'd be up for any questions if you send them to him. So,
yep.
I guess other than that, thank you for listening, and until next time, take care. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the most recent episode of the Volkfurs podcast. If you have any questions or comments, suggestions, please email me at info@volkfurs.com. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook, or you can contact me via my website at volkfurs.com.